and welcome to today's episode of Linking In with Louise. Today I have a very special guest coming all the way from New Jersey. And for people who know me, my big love of Bruce Springsteen, I'm delighted to have a Jersey girl on my podcast. So Amanda Berlin is a podcaster and a PR specialist, but I'm going to let her tell you properly. I'm sure, Amanda, you've probably not been introduced as a Jersey girl on many podcasts. There you are.
That's so funny.
So welcome to the podcast, Amanda.
Louise, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled that we're getting to chat.
Yes, I'm excited about this. Actually, I've got some different questions for you, actually, that I normally ask people because I'm quite nosy about some of the things that you've done.
Oh, cool.
Before we start, Amanda, do you want to give your proper introduction to everybody listening?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Amanda Berlin. I help people, mostly women in service-oriented businesses who feel like they are frustrated because not enough of the right people know about them. And they see opportunities that are going to other people in their industry and they're having those fist-shaking moments like, that should be me. And they just don't know how to reach out, be more visible, be seen by the right people, attract more of the right clients, and also properly articulate their story in a way that makes them feel like what is going on in their heart and in their mind is actually being sent out there into the world in the words that they want to use. I have a tenure in corporate public relations that I bring to bear and help my clients to form collaborations and alliances, speak on stages, host events, and pitch the media, the whole gamut of PR tactics I help them utilize in their business. And also just as like a side note, everything we do in PR is free. So I'm not coaching people on utilizing advertising. I'm consulting with them on how to use these free tactics to build visibility, connect authentically with an audience, do so through free grassroots tactics, and build their bottom line, earn more money.
Brilliant. Do you know what jumped out at me in that, Amanda? What you call the fist-shaking moment. When you see somebody else who does what you do, but they're the person being quoted in the Forbes article.
Right.
What?
Yep. How familiar are all of us with that sensation?
I think that's fantastic. Now, you talked there about your work that you did in corporate. So before you started out on your own, you were working in what I understand is you were working in the New York lifestyle corporate machine, weren't you?
Absolutely. Yeah. And my soul was slowly dying because I was stuck in that corporate, that corporate hamster wheel. It was interesting because I started my career working in celebrity publicity. I was doing what's known as satellite media tours in the industry. And our clients were all of the networks that are based in New York City. So ABC, CBS, NBC, for those of us in the US who are familiar with those mainstays. Lifetime, all of those were our clients. And whenever they had a project that featured a prominent celebrity, they would send their talent over to the firm that I worked for. And we would book interviews for them across the country on all different local affiliates. So like the ABC affiliate in San Diego would want to interview whoever is doing like this movie of the week or whatever it might be. Yes. This was in the early 2000s. So that kind of outreach was really easy because who doesn't want to talk to, the height of celebrity who I worked with was Paul McCartney. So like we had people calling us to talk to Paul McCartney. Like it's not a hard pitch to get someone to say yes to. Yeah. But from there, and I should also add in the early 2000s, doing a job like that in PR entertainment, I made like $2.
Really? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no, it was a very, very low pay.
Oh, wow.
And because it's not a traditionally, entertainment production is like not always the most highly paid position over here. And I was so young and it was just a coveted job. And so it was not financially rewarding, though it was a fun position.
Yes.
But from there, I went into a more traditional role in the public relations world, though I was always in this media relations function where we were charged with getting our clients television and radio coverage. And so over the years, I worked my way up to being the editorial director of a firm that specialized in this kind of media outreach. And what that meant was that clients would come to us with a product or an initiative or something they were launching, and they would say, in not so many words, get us on television, get us on the radio. And my job was to distill from whatever their initiative was, a pharmaceutical they were launching, a new vaccine, a consumer product, a new line of soap or whatever it is, to distill from that what is important to the audience and how can we transform this into a story that people are going to be interested in enough to say, sure, we'll talk to your doctor spokesperson on our radio show or on our television show. And so my job was to take whatever jargon they might have or whatever, product specs they might have sent us and pair that, create a story that also highlights the spokesperson as an interesting person they might want to talk to and make that into a story that would be palatable to the media. And I liked that work, but I really did get beaten down by the culture in the firm that I was working for. And so when I got laid off, and I will wrap this story up quickly, when I got laid off, I was determined. I was really beaten down, and I was like, I don't want to have anything to do with that communications industry anymore. I'm going to do something that makes people's lives better. I'm getting certified as a life coach. That's what I'm going to do. And I want nothing to do with communications. And it didn't occur to me that all of the skills I had accrued in all of those years cutting my teeth in the PR world is actually an essential skill set for running any kind of business, whether I was going to be a life coach or going to be a baker or whatever I was going to do. That skill set was going to be important. And so after a couple years of trial and error, I realized that I actually really loved the work that I had been doing, and I was good at it, and I could write a pitch in 10 minutes because that was the gauntlet that I had been trained on, and crafting that story, the story that would be interesting to the audience out there was something that came easily to me. And I realized that wasn't something that everyone knew how to do. And that was kind of going to be, if I was bent on having a positive impact, I could have that positive impact by helping people who are doing amazing work out there, make sure that more people knew about the work they were doing. And so that's what I do now.
It's so funny because I think for a lot of us, what you're saying is basically you took the skill that you find easy that your clients find very challenging, and you sometimes it's like me and my LinkedIn work. For me to turn someone's LinkedIn profile around is pretty easy for me because I've been doing it for so long. But for the person who doesn't do it day in, day out, it's a massive struggle and overwhelm. And that's and what you do, it's so helpful to people. So that's excellent. I love it. Excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've put in the time to understand what your medium requires of the people who, and they don't know that. So whether it wasn't easy, perhaps there was a time when it wasn't easy for you, but you've put in the time so that it's become easy for you. And now you can bring those people along who were where you were in the beginning, in that clueless state.
And I think for a lot of people who listen to my podcast who are, I have listeners who are still working in jobs, inverted commas, and thinking, what would I do if I left this? And like you, Amanda, you thought you'd go off and be a life coach. I thought I would leave working in IT to open a craft shop, craft supplies. And then you find your way back to actually, I have this entire set of skills. Why am I not using them? But I wonder, is there something in that you kind of need to have a proper break from it to then sit back and appreciate, well, actually, I know how to do that. Like for me, it was finding out by talking to other people that what I found relatively easy, they found quite hard. Like, would you say, for you to start doing this work with your now ideal clients, how did you find that there was a need for that? Was it through talking to people while you were trying to figure out the life coaching part, or how did you come to that?
That's a really good question. The thing that comes to mind for me in that part of my journey is actually super specific to me. And I'll tell you the specific story. And maybe there's some generalities that we can pull out of it. But for me, I was kind of going along. At the time it was in the mid 2000s and I was married but I didn't have a lot of responsibilities. I did own an apartment, but that was really it. Like I didn't have a lot that I needed to, I wouldn't even say I could afford to dabble. Like it wasn't that. I just had the mindset of like, I'll figure this out. And I would go in all these different directions. In retrospect, I was kind of dabbling, but I sort of like went all in and I went for the life coaching thing. Mm-hmm. I went for like a fitness thing that I thought that I really loved. Mm-hmm. And it turned out that none of those things really lit me up. And then I got pregnant and I realized that, and I had always been the breadwinner for our family and our marriage. And so I was like, okay, now I have to actually figure out like what I'm going to do, because I was pretty set on the fact that I wasn't going to go back to corporate. Mm-hmm. And I had this entrepreneurial bug for many years. So I just made like the foolish decision that I was just standing my ground and I wasn't going to go back to corporate. So like, what can I do? And it was sort of a natural direction to go in, to turn back to the thing that I knew I could get paid for, which was communications and marketing and PR. And so I approached an organization that I believed in and that I thought could use my help. And I happened to have a connection to the executive director. And I just said, this is what I used to do in my past corporate career. I think I can help you guys. What do you think? And it was actually a very kind of begrudging outreach, because I still hadn't come to terms with that, that this was my contribution to make, that I could do this in a way that helped people. But it was more of like, now I need to get serious because I'm the one earning the money in our family. And now I have to go back into communications, even though I don't want to. And I thought it was my turn. Yeah. So, but the blessing of it was that I started to create a proposal for this organization, and it was like a huge light bulb epiphany moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I really love this work. Like I just hadn't been doing it for the right kinds of clients or in the right kind of environment. And that was what shifted things for me. So perhaps the takeaway in all of that is, to your point, I think that you're right. Like we need some distance to have perspective. Yeah. And I gave myself the opportunity to kind of try all of these different things, all of the things I thought I would love. And it was actually kind of heartbreaking to recognize like that, nope, that's not it. That's not it. So, there was a commitment on my part to like figure it out and not just default back to the cubicle. There were moments where it was scary financially. And I was like, I remember being out on the sidewalk in Manhattan outside my apartment and saying to myself, like, do you want to go back to the cubicle? You can go back to the cubicle if this is too scary for you. And it was like, I was sort of like shaking, like if I were my own coach, I was like, holding myself by the shoulders and giving myself a shake. Yeah. Like, are you in this or are you out?
I mean, you and I are lucky in that. I think if I